This is Educated Artistry. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Educated Artistry. I'm super excited to have an in-person guest today, especially if you are tuning in on YouTube. I am joined by Sydnee. She's the owner of Pacific Beauty Cove and Zalora Lash. She has been a lash artist since 2017, and she now teaches students how to do classic lashes all the way up to mega volume lashes. She specializes in corrective mapping and loves educating owners on the financial organization, marketing, branding on social media. And today we're really going to dive in about like why you should or shouldn't become a lash trainer, because I think so many of us believe we have this line that we have to take with our career where we take our clients and then we start getting really busy and then it's like, oh, I should become a lash trainer next. That's the next step in my career. So we're going to kind of break down, we're going to talk about Sydnee's journey of being a lash educator, how she got started, and then just kind of like why you should or shouldn't become one and if it's for you. So thank you so much for coming and joining.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here in person too. So yeah, I'm so excited to talk. I feel like this is like a subject that I'm really passionate about too. So
Yes, I always see you on Instagram talking about like lash training and especially your corrective mapping. I think is so important, which I know we're going to
thank
get into
you.
that. So, what did the journey of becoming a trainer look like for you? Like, did you always know you kind of wanted to get into the education area, or did it just happen
No,
organically?
I feel like it really just happened organically and kind of out of a horrible experience that I had
Mm.
through educating. So when I was in beauty school, we had like a 10-minute YouTube tutorial that we were given, like of how to do lashes, and then like this really cheap lash kit, like tweezers from Wish and like sky
Oh my
glue. Yeah, all of
gosh.
the cringiest things. And
Yes.
we were like, and they were like, okay, go do paying customers
Right.
now that you know how to do it because you've been educated, quote unquote.
Mhm.
So I was scared shitless to do my first lash client, but there were some girls in beauty school who had been doing lashes
Mhm.
outside of school. So I was like kind of picking up things with them, learning like little tips and tricks along the way. And then once I graduated beauty school, I was employed at this little small salon. And the owner was like, don't waste your money on education. It's thousands of dollars. I'll teach you everything you need to know. So I was like, great. I'm so jazzed. I get free education.
Right.
And I say like education in quotes because it was basically me just like watching her do her clients
Mm.
and no explanation on like the why behind what she was doing,
Mhm.
which like watching can be a really great thing, but I never gotten like an explanation as to why. So once I transitioned from an employee to like a booth renter and like kind of became my own business, that's when I got really curious about like continuing education courses. I had
Mm.
never really heard of them before. This was like back in 2017, 18 when like education really wasn't like a big thing.
Yeah.
And so one of my friends was like, I really want to take the Borboleta lash training. Do you want to take it with me? And I was like, oh dear God, this is like thousands of dollars. Like,
Yeah.
do I need it? I've been lashing 8 months. I already have clients. Like, I already know how to do it. Like, why do I need to spend the money and like invest in this?
Mhm.
I took it anyway with her, and like this course literally blew my mind. It was just like a simple like basic volume course, but it made me realize how little I actually knew about lashing. So this kind of set me into like a journey of like a rabbit hole of like just getting all of the education that I could. So for the following 2 years, I had taken like all the online courses, all of the in-person courses you can think of just to soak in the information. And it kind of like lit a fire under my ass to really be the person that I would have wanted to have when I was in the early stages of my career. Like,
Mhm.
I really wish there was someone in my local area that was accessible to learn from, because like at the time 2018 2019, all that was there was, you know, the big brand names that would come to your city like once or twice a year, and it was super inaccessible to
Yeah.
get a lash training. And then the lash training that was available, it was like, you know, $1,000 for like a 1 day course where like, am I going to learn anything? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. So it just wasn't a big thing at the time. Now it is, which is awesome. But yeah, that's kind of how I started my journey. I really just wanted to be the person that I wish I had starting out.
Yeah, no, it's so weird to think back because I started in 2015 and I was also just trained by I started as an employee and she just trained me. I knew nothing about
Yeah.
lash extensions and it was just shadowing and she's like, this is just what you do. And like
Yeah.
this is there was no why either. And it's so weird to look back now and just even think about that. And I think anybody who enters the industry now, I'm just like, you're so lucky. Like you
So
have it
lucky.
so good because there's so much free information. Um at your fingertips now too.
Mhm.
And I think that that is like a really good point because I didn't even really think about that where trainings were not accessible for everybody.
Mhm.
And like that you would either have to travel or them come to your state and you're taking time off work if you're going to travel too, paying for all the traveling costs. And it is hard to be like, is this going to be worth it?
Yeah.
Especially if you're like, I've already been taking clients, like what's
Yeah.
the point? So I think that's really cool that that's kind of like what lit it underneath of you too.
Yes. Yeah.
So what was the first step that you took in like creating your own training program?
The first thing that I did when I started writing my curriculum was I just brain dumped everything onto a PowerPoint,
Mhm.
and it was not pretty, I'm not gonna lie. Like it was like a white PowerPoint, like no background, like black text. Like that was my manual. But it helped me organize, like, okay, I want to teach this, in this order, in this theory. So when I was writing my curriculum, I knew that I wanted to really put in there the why behind the lashing. So it made sense to my students because that was one thing that I was really missing when I was, just getting from my old boss. I was just watching and I didn't know the why. And I feel like when you know the why behind lashing, you can equip your students better so they're more self-sufficient after the course so they don't have to constantly come back to you and say, why is my retention stuck? Why are my lashes not lasting? Now that they have the why, they know so they can problem solve on their own and solve all of their problems instead of having to constantly cling to you. So I knew I really wanted to have all of the why behind that on top of all the fundamentals and like the basics and everything too. And then when I was writing my curriculum, I knew that I also wanted to have corrective mapping in there as well because I felt that it was so important to learn, even as like a beginner classic, all the way to like a mega volume artist. I felt like it shouldn't be something that was defined by like, oh, take a mapping course, after you learn lashes because it's more of an advanced technique. Like, I really strongly believe that it should be taught when you first learn because it is just as important in learning proper retention, all the chemical stuff behind the adhesive. So that's why I wanted to have it in my curriculum. So I knew that from the beginning. So I have it in all of my courses, my
Mhm.
classic, my volume, and my mega volume. So those were like the two main things that I knew I wanted to have in there. But yeah, that's kind of how I started my curriculum. And then when I was teaching my students, I would print out a manual for them so they could write notes in it. And then I would print out a manual for myself so I could write notes in
Yeah.
it. So then when I was teaching them, I'd be like, okay, I need to like explain this better, like a page 7, like explain better, or like, like
Yeah.
do something else or something different so they can like learn better, so I can like articulate my words better, things like that. So that's kind of how it started off. It was rocky, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that's such a cool way too. And just like one, we had a couple people ask that I did a little poll on Instagram and they asked, like, how do I write a manual? Like, I don't have a manual. And I think that's really important. Just brain dump, just start writing down all the things you want to cover and categorizing it and then just brain dumping. Like, that's what I do for any course, even currently now, is that it starts with just like, literally just like throwing a bunch of shit on a piece of paper and just putting it all out there and then you organize and you tweak and then you perfect and I think that's the best way to do it. And I agree with you too with like I think corrective mapping needs to be something that's in like the foundational skills because it
Mhm.
is so important. And I think it's the same with like making sure you can lash every type of lash that comes in too, like
Yes, yeah.
every type of ethnicity you should be
Mhm.
able to learn that from the foundational skills. It shouldn't be
Mhm.
like a specialty course or anything,
Mhm.
and that does tie in with corrective mapping. So,
Mhm.
no, I think that's really cool. So, did you start with classic, like a classic course, and then add on volume, or did you do both?
Yeah, so the very first, like, couple of students that I had was classic, and then it was pretty soon after that I started writing my volume and mega volume
Cool.
manual.
So, what did the first student look like for you? Like, you got
Yeah.
your manual, you printed it out on your PowerPoint. What was that first student like?
So, it's actually kind of funny because she wasn't like a real student. Like,
Uh-huh.
I was struggling pretty bad with imposter syndrome, so I actually asked a client, like a long-term lash client of mine. I was like, "Hey, can you like come in for the day so I can like show you this manual that I've written and like go through step by step,
Yeah.
like do a mock class with her because I was like,
Mhm.
I am terrified of charging someone like $1,000 for this class when like, and I don't want to sound stupid and I want them to like learn.
Yeah.
So I was like, come in, I'll do a mock class and everything. So yeah, my first student was actually a long-term lash client that I had, and she was so great. She sat there and she was like, you're doing such a good job. Like, but she knew nothing about lashes other than like, what we had talked about in our appointment. So but yeah, I gave her like a little mock like certificate and everything,
That's
and
so
she was so
cute.
excited. Yeah.
No, I think that that's brilliant because especially when you're teaching beginners, you really are teaching somebody who knows nothing about lash extensions. So to be able to grab somebody that also knows nothing and then explain it to them, they're like, "No, I get this. I'm understanding this."
Mhm.
That's really good feedback to have because I think like this happens with caption writing and everything too. When we start talking, we know like the terminology, we know
Yeah.
certain things. So we're just like we expect everybody else to know and people are like, what is a hybrid? Like, what is a
Mhm.
3D fan? Like, they have no idea. What is like retention mean?
Yeah.
It's like, so I think that's really cool that you actually did it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's smart for anybody. I always tell people like doing an audit with, your website and stuff, like have
Mhm.
people go through and read your descriptions that would make sense to somebody who has no idea about lash extensions. And I think with
Yeah.
your training, that's something too to make sure because it's really easy for us to just get into our lash artist brain and start talking about
Mhm.
it as somebody already knows. And we kind of just have to expect that they know nothing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 100%.
I think that is really freaking cool. Okay, so how did you start marketing your trainings like to get students to book with you?
So originally I had a couple people ask like before I even started doing trainings if I was. So once I like actually launched the trainings and started doing them, I did take those people in.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it from there was like word of mouth. I wasn't super big on Instagram at that time. I think I only had like under 1,000 followers. So a lot of them actually came from my website. I had a really good web designer do a whole bunch of like SEO
Mm,
optimizations on my website.
cool.
So a lot of it was website, a lot of it was word of mouth. I did a lot of like marketing on like Facebook groups. So I
Mm,
had a lot of like local girls in like
cool.
the Puyallup area. And then for whatever reason, like I think Instagram thought that I lived in Portland. So I had like a ton of students come from Portland like one
Cool.
year. Yeah, which was awesome. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, like I'll take it. But yeah,
Yeah.
Instagram slowly has become more of the marketing platform that I use now. So
Mhm. Yeah, so you mainly took, like, local,
yeah.
which I think
Hmm.
is also super smart, right? Like,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people start trainings and they think that they have to have this, like, huge audience too for people to come to them
Hmm.
or, travel to them, and really there's probably so many local artists that need help and wanna learn
Yeah.
from you. Did you start any, like, before you did your full-on training, did you do any, like, mentorship or shadowing days or anything, like, to kinda figure out what people were looking for, or did you kinda just go straight into the trainings?
I think I did like 1 or 2 like shadow days, and they were cringy looking back at this. You've just jogged a memory in in my
Yeah,
head,
let's
like, I
hear
totally forgot
it.
about it, but, yeah, there was, I think, like, 2 girls who were in beauty school, and they were like, "Ah, I wanna graduate early, I want the hours." I was like, "Well, just come in and, like,
Shadow, yeah, hang
shadow,
out,
sit in my
mhm.
room and watch me do lashes, and you'll get hours to fulfill it." So that was
Yeah,
that
that
was
was
the
your
beginning.
shadowing.
Yeah, that was the shadow, yeah.
I did a couple shadowing and then I was like, "I hate this," because I did it while I had clients, and I would make sure my clients were okay with it. I'd be like, "Do you
Mhm.
care if someone shadows?" And at first I'm like, "Cool, I'm, like, getting paid for someone to come watch me, and they can ask me questions, and I'm also getting my clients," but then it was just, like, too much all
Yeah.
at once, and then I felt like I couldn't give my clients the full experience. I was running a little bit late because it's, like it's hard when you're, like, talking and then trying to do lashes, and some clients want to, like, just it be quiet, and then you never
Mhm.
know with the person shadowing if they're gonna be have a ton of questions or not have any questions, so I did it a few times and I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So I personally had started with like offering just kind of like one-on-one, like couple hour mentorships just to kind of see like what people were needing help with. And then I personally actually ended up training for another company and
Oh,
being like
really?
their trainer here for Lash Essential. And I did that for I think almost like 4 years. Loved it, but it was great because was able to help with the manual and update things. And we started with a 1 day training and it's now a 2 day training. Plus, there's an entire online process attached to it as well with like online training. So it's really cool just to see how much it evolved in general.
Yeah.
But I think that's another option too for anybody who's like thinking, wanting to become a trainer. And then you're like, well, do I want to do the whole manual work and like kit building, which we'll get into all of that too.
Mhm.
Have you had, I didn't ask this on our sheet, but I was just thinking, have you had any like really crazy scenarios with like trainings or like with the models that came in or anything?
I haven't, which I'm so thankful for. Wait,
Yeah.
have you? Because it sounds like you have, and I wanna
I've just
know.
had a couple times where I'm like, wow, this is like testing. Like one time, there's been a couple times where people, which we always try, and I would say anybody teaching classes, like make sure you tell people how important it is with like vision and like if you need reading glasses or anything because it's such like a depth perception.
Mhm.
So there's a couple times where students were like having a really hard time with the vision part of it. So we tried different magnifiers and stuff, but we ended up having to like stop the class and then we like redid it once they came and got, that all
Oh,
figured out. So,
yeah.
but that was challenging. So I'm like, what do I do? Like, I can't just
Yeah.
make her do this model. And she's like, I can't like see. I've had somebody like throw up during
Stop it,
the
what?
model did. Yeah.
Oh, the
And
model
the
threw up?
model threw up and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And it was fine. Like, it's whatever. But I was just like, it just feel like
Oh
I had a
my
lot of
god.
things that happened where I was just like, what do I even do in this situation?
Is she, like, hungover?
No, I think she just, like, ate something that, like, didn't settle
Oh
with her
my god.
stomach, yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, I feel like there was another one, but there was just a couple times where I was like, "This is, like I'm growing from this," because,
Mhm.
there are things, like I think that's something too is, like, everybody has different learning styles, and people I don't you may have had this where some people will get it, and some
Mhm.
people, they get really frustrated,
Mhm.
and I think becoming a trainer, you really have to know how to handle when people get really frustrated and they wanna just, like, chuck their fucking tweezers at you
Yeah.
because it's hard, and for
Yeah.
some people, it's not as natural, and it takes that, like, you being that, like, giving them tweaks, giving them adjustments, watching their micro movements, and
Mhm.
tweaking things, and reminding them, like, "I'm gonna be in your ear, and you're gonna hear me being like,
Mhm.
tilt your tweezer back, tilt
Yep.
your tweezer back,
Mhm.
tilt your tweezer back,"
Mhm.
and so I think that's something really big too, because that I think for me, that was, like, one of the more challenging parts when I started training was really learning how to adjust, like, my teaching in order when they were getting really frustrated. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, that is one of the main reasons where I don't have, like, a huge, like, 4-hour chunk of time where they're just sitting practicing
yeah.
to making fans because it is frustrating and you get so, like, emotionally tired
Yeah.
learning something new, so, like, I'll have them, like, make a fan, we'll do it for 20 minutes, and then we'll go over and do something else, come back to
Yeah.
making a fan, do it for 20 minutes, and then learn something else, and every single time, like, they run into, like, a different problem, so
Mhm.
we'll solve that one issue and then go do something else and then like work through the kinks so they
Yeah.
leave feeling confident and knowing how to do it instead of like I'm done with this
Yeah.
shit. Yeah.
I always tell, especially for my classic lashes, I'd always be like, "I'm gonna tell you guys now, your first set, it's gonna look like shit."
Yep.
I say it straight. I'm like, "You will not be happy. You're not gonna get them 100% covered. The
Mhm.
point of this class is for you to leave confident in, like, isolation, how to apply," like you said, like,
Yeah.
the why to everything, and a lot of them then, they'll get their lashes done because I was like, "I'd rather have you have, like, 15 perfect lashes
Yeah.
than 100, like, shitty lashes."
Yes,
So,
100%.
and so then usually what they'll do is they'll then take their model and they'll, finish their lashes later and they're super happy with how they turn out. And I'm like, trust me, it's not going to look good. My first model set was like 6 hours and I think I only got like 30 lashes on her.
Yeah.
Like, so I
Mhm.
think that's something too is like just setting it up, being realistic with the expectations,
Yes.
especially with beginners.
Yes, yeah, and the thing is, like, they can take what you taught them in the class and go practice that at home.
Uh huh.
The point of the training is not to leave being perfect. The point is to leave having the theory and then perfecting it when you get home.
Yes.
So,
Oh, I love that. So, what advice would you give someone that is thinking about becoming a lash trainer and wanting to take that next step in their career? Do you have any like specific recommendations or anything?
so if you're looking to get into the educational world, I would highly suggest to take a lot of lash training courses yourself
Mm.
to figure out what kind of learning style you learn best from and then to figure out kind of like what teaching style you want to do too because there's so many different teaching styles out there. Do you like the quick pace? Do you like the 1 day in and out? I've learned it. Do you like, the 2, 3 day? Like I want to have someone hold my hand throughout the whole process. So just like figure out what you like. If you're taking a bunch of online courses, what do you like from the online courses and how they teach it? And I don't mean like copy the curriculum from these courses that you're taking because we don't want to copy the
Of
curriculum,
course.
but really analyze what you like and what you don't like. Like when I was taking I think it was the Lashbox LA training. It was a 1-day course and there was a ton of hands-on work. And I was so emotionally frustrated. When I got to my model, I only put like 15 fans on her. I was
Really?
done. There was people crying in the class, I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah.
Oh,
So, like, I knew from then, I was like, "I'm never doing a one-day course because it is too rough,
yeah,
like, emotionally, like, physically, like, your hands are like jello afterwards." So, I was like, "Okay,
yeah.
I know I wanna do the 2 days." So, take from the trainings what you want to take from it. Don't copy the curriculum, but really implement the teaching style that you wish that you had.
No, I think that's super smart because some people too, like, especially with online, like if you like self-paced, you want to be able to go at it at your own, or if you like a live class so you can interact and talk to the teacher.
Mhm.
Um, but one day I always, yeah, one day, yeah, those are hard.
Those are
Those are
rough.
so hard.
Oof.
I that just like brought back a memory too, even when and this was a 2-day course, was Lash Maker's course, which I
Mhm.
recommend it to everybody. It's so freaking amazing. But this is when I first learned like really about like crystallizing fans and like narrow fans and layering. Like that was all completely new to me. This was in 2018. So it was like 3 years into lashing. But that was when things really kind of started evolving with like eye styling.
Yeah.
And I never knew anything about lash layers. So, but I remember the second day where like it was the entire day was your model. Like you started with your model, you took a lunch break and you all took a lunch break
Mhm.
together and then you ended with your model. It was a straight 8-hour day of lashing.
Wow.
And the set looked beautiful, but I was just like, "Oh my gosh, my
That's a lot.
brain was so freaking dead." I couldn't have imagined if that was just like the one day and then you're like, "Okay,
Oh my
we're
god,
done."
yeah, I couldn't have imagined either. It's
Ugh.
hard, man. It's not fun either.
Yeah. Well, and that's like for me too. When I was working with Lash Essential and we expanded to 2 days, we did like a whole day of theory, hands on practice. And then the second day was more kind of hands on practice and prepping for our client coming in of like styling and what we were going to do on them, the type of mapping. And then we would just do 4 hours. Like you just had
Mhm.
4 hours for your model because I'm like, anything beyond that, you're frustrated and you're just
Yeah,
like, your brain is dead. It's time to go home.
yeah.
So that's why it just was a set 4 hours. Like you just got done what you could. And, like I said, a lot of the times people would just go and they would finish their model the next day or continue practicing. And that seemed to work out a lot better than just like having, oh, it's,
8
yeah,
hours on
yeah,
a model, that's insane. Yeah, I
crazy.
do the same thing for my students. I never let them lash over 4 hours because 'cause I'm like, "You're done. You
Yeah.
can finish it at home." Yeah.
Yeah, for real. I'm like, trust me, you want to
Mhm.
be done.
Yes.
So do you offer a kit with your trainings
I
too?
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you
Mhm.
decide like putting all that together with like your manual and like what to include in your kit? And then you do a 2-day training for each one, right?
Yeah, so 2-day training for each one. I think a lot of what I put in my kit is stuff that if I knew someone was, like, wanting to start their own lash business, like, here's all the things that you would need to have that in
Mm,
there.
mhm.
And then, of course, everything that we use in the training, like, that's theirs to keep. So, I've got lashes, lash tiles, tweezers. So I have my own lash brand, Zalora, so I'm able to bring 3 different tweezers for them because everyone has, like, different, like, ergonomics. So they're able to test out if we're doing volumes or whatever, mega volumes, they're
Yeah.
able to test out what tweezer they like better. So I'll send them home with whatever
The one I
tweezer.
like. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then things like iPads, glue, primer, spoolies, just all the little applicational things like
Yeah.
that I have in there. Yeah.
How did you go about, like, with your pricing? I know I didn't ask you this on the phone,
Yeah.
but, like, with your pricing, how did you go about that with, like, "Okay, I know I want I need to price this, but I also have, like, the cost of the kit." And I know since you have your own brand, like, your cost for your kit is probably a little bit lower than somebody who's gonna go out and build a kit. So with
Mhm.
your first training, did you build a kit or did you didn't have your Lash brand yet,
No,
right?
yeah, in 2019 when I started training, I didn't have my lash brand. So I think it cost me like around $350 to build this whole kit out,
Mhm.
which went directly into the cost of like their training.
Training.
Yeah, so I think when I first started, I charged like $1,000 for training, which
Mhm.
is it's pretty cheap,
Yeah.
but currently I charge 1,500, which that takes into account like if I were lashing 2 full days, I would be making like X amount of money.
Right.
So automatically, like I need to have my students pay that and then the kit on top of that. So that's kind of how
Yeah.
I price it out. Yeah.
No, I think that's smart because a lot of people will actually transition into this of like why they want to get into lashes, which is they want to make a lot of money,
Yeah.
And so we'll wait for that one because I do want to
Yeah.
ask you, how did you determine how to set up your trainings and what kind of trainings to offer? And what do you think somebody should consider like when they're building out their own training program?
Yeah, I would definitely take into consideration what you want to teach and
Mhm.
what you're passionate about. So I know a lot of the trainers that I have talked to, they don't have the patience for training newbies like classics.
Yeah.
I love it. So I will always keep classics on my menu because I kind of have like a soft spot for like newbies.
Yeah.
So I have that. But if you don't have the patience to deal with beginners, don't teach, classic lashes. If mapping is not your strong suit, don't teach mapping. If,
Yeah.
If your retention sucks in real life, maybe don't hold a master class for retention.
Yeah.
Just take that into consideration. Really teach what you're passionate about, because I feel like your students will pick up and retain so much more information if you're teaching about something that you're really passionate about.
Well, and kind of how you said in the beginning too, like you started with classic and then you added on volume and mega volume. Like you do not have to start out with everything.
Yeah.
Start out with one class and become really well known for that and the sought out trainer in your local area. And then you can build upon it as people are going to start coming to you and you're known for that. And then you're like, okay, now people are asking me a lot about a styling course or whatever it is. So how has your training evolved from when you started with your printed out PowerPoint to your trainings today?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it when we were talking about that one question, but like I said, I would print a manual out for my student and then I would print a manual out for myself. So like every single student, I was constantly taking notes on like how I could be better articulate it, better explain. And then like even when you're teaching, like when you're first starting teaching, like, oh my God, I forgot to like put this in there. Like she doesn't even know what 3D 4D means. Like I should probably explain that. So there's always like something that you'll learn from each student too. And each student learns in a different way. So they're going to be asking different questions. So I did a lot of note taking, a lot of reflecting after each class, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to print my manual out per course. Like I didn't go to like Vistaprint or like Office Depot and print like 10 of my manual out at the same time. Yeah, because I wanted to be able to change it and stuff. Currently though, it has evolved. I have moved it from PowerPoint. It's actually pretty now. I built it all on Canva. So it's actually gorgeous. I haven't printed a ton of it out yet because I just want to print one out and like see how it looks on paper, and then I'll probably go to like Vistaprint and print like 10 or 20 out at a time. But yeah, that's kind of how it evolved. Like it would definitely was not perfect in the beginning, and you don't have to have it perfect in the beginning because all that really matters is the knowledge.
Yeah.
They're paying for your knowledge. They're not paying for something pretty on paper.
I think that's such a good takeaway too, because something that holds so many people back is the fear of not being perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important to be able to just enjoy the journey. And it's cool to look back. Like even today, like I've been wanting to do more in-person podcast interviews and stuff. And like, I think it looks cute little setup, but it's just like I took a little video of like this because I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at this in a year because I have these big ideas and dreams of what I want it to look like eventually. And it's just cool to look back on, right? And just be a part of the process. It's the same with your training and really any part of your business, I think. So I think that's brilliant too for anybody that wants to get into training, or if you've already started, is to like continue to take notes and make tweaks to your manual and just continue to evolve and make it better.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be something that we forget or we need to explain, or guess what? The industry evolves and there's a new something that comes out, right? So that's another part where you're like, we kind of, or I don't even know if we touched on it. We're like in the beginning, it was like primers, bonders, sealants, like weren't really a thing. Different kinds of adhesive weren't really a thing. Like different curls and diameters, different techniques for different mapping. It's like none of that was a thing. So we have to continue to evolve our trainings if we're going to stay relevant.
Yeah, I think in my like first manuals, like I didn't even have anything about like primers or bonders because like back in like 2019, they were like almost like a gimmick.
They weren't even, it was like a marketing
gimmick. Yeah, we were like, is this shit real? Like, so now that it's evolved and we know the science behind it, like now we can incorporate it. But yeah, never, as an educator, you should never stop learning. You should always be evolving too. So.
I agree. I remember with like primers, like we were always told to use primers, and I think this was like before my time that primers were made because you're supposed to like clean the actual lash strip before. Like that's what they were for, like to clean the lash strip before, because there was like some sort of residue on the lashes or something.
I was never taught that. That's
and
so
that, and
this
is why I think like I started in 2015, so I think that this is what it was then. And then when I started, primers were like, oh, you prime the lashes to prep them. But I don't remember who it was. I actually think it might have been Lena from Lash Makers, and she was saying how that pretty much they just started marketing it for that instead of prepping the lashes because they no longer, the lash evolution had changed where you didn't need to do that anymore, but everybody had all these primers on stock. So then they're like, we'll put on the lashes, and it was just pure alcohol. you know?
Yes, it was.
So then it was
Mhm.
like kind of a marketing thing. So I didn't use primer for a long, long
Mhm.
time because I was like, then it's just drying out the lash and there's
Yeah.
everything. But there are amazing brands that now are like have evolved the formulas and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's why you have to continue to learn
Yeah.
because it's crazy.
Mhm.
You're like, what? You're like,
It's
is
always
this really?
evolving. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to get into the spicy stuff. So,
Spicy.
why should you not become a lash trainer? As I said in the beginning,
Mhm.
a lot of us think that that is the career path of a lash artist. Take clients, get fully booked, become a trainer, offer courses, and it's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So, let's dive into that.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. Do not become a lash educator if you feel like this is just your next step. If you're not passionate about becoming an educator, don't do it. There's so many different avenues you can take in the
Mhm.
industry, like running a salon, doing booth rentals, making your own lash brand, being a mentor instead, like a business mentor, things like that. So
Yeah.
there are so many different avenues you can take to growing your business in the lash industry. Like you can do make your own salon, you can do booth rentals, you can create your own lash brand, you can be a business mentor. There's so many different things that you can do besides educating. So if you're not passionate about it, definitely don't become an educator. The industry doesn't really need money hungry educators. We
Yeah.
need knowledgeable educators. We need passionate educators and leaders to provide valuable information to the next generation of lash artists. So if that's not something that you are willing to provide for this community, then just don't do it.
No, I totally agree. So let's talk about like some red flags too of like if somebody's even looking to take a class, like a couple of red flags that you've seen for them not to maybe that wouldn't be the good class for them. Like, because we both taken classes where we're like, oh
Mhm.
crap, like that wasn't really, I didn't learn anything. I spent $1,000. And, what are a couple red flags that you've seen with educators?
That's a really good one. I'm going to take a second to think about
Yeah, go
that.
for it. I'll say one while you're
Yeah.
thinking.
Mhm.
So, I personally think if somebody is going to claim that they can teach you classic, volume, mega volume in one day, it is bullshit.
Bullshit. I call bullshit
It's
on that too.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, I see a lot of courses like that where it's just like, learn all these techniques in one day. Sure, they can like show you how to do them in all one day, but you are not going to feel confident in even like making with everything that there is. Like there's so much just in the foundational skills. And
Mhm.
I think as people want to become educators, they start looking at what other people are doing around them and they're like, oh, well, they're doing that. So I should do that too. And I think what you said too is important of like sitting back and really seeing what am I passionate about? Do I actually want to teach this? Do I want to teach beginners? Do I want to
Mhm.
teach mega volume? And daring to like step outside and evolve your
Mhm.
local area because that has a lot of value and impact. A lot of people think that the competition and everything. And I always talk about this with price increases as well. I'm like, if I increase my price and I'm the highest charging lash artist, I would hope that that's just going to like inspire other lash artists in my area to also
Mhm.
increase their prices. All that does is help us all as a whole.
Yes.
And it's the same with training too. Like if you're like, no, I'm actually going to teach this, but I'm going to offer a 2-day course because I truly believe that we need to have more time, more one-on-one time. And I really want my students to leave very knowledgeable, taking care of other people's natural lash health. That's only going to elevate because what that's going to do is those people that are money hungry and they're like throwing this, they're going to easily be like, well, I'd rather spend the extra $500 or
Mhm.
whatever to come to you
Yeah.
when they start seeing that. So don't be afraid to like change it up, especially I think like a lot of us when we start trading, it's more to our local community and then it grows
Mhm.
beyond that. But that's definitely one of my big red flags when it comes to lash trainings.
Yeah, I think a big red flag for me is switching to like the online
Mm,
world of education
mhm,
is ebooks. I don't like ebooks because I feel like you can't properly articulate the why behind it.
mhm.
So like a lot of mapping ebooks out there are kind of like the one size fits all, which I'm like super passionate about corrective mapping. So it really just like irks me when someone creates like an ebook for like $200 and then puts it online and it's like put all these wispy maps on your clients and then they do and they don't look good.
Yeah.
So that's like a red flag for me is just like trying to sell and market without the intent of elevating,
Mhm.
with only the intent of I'm going to make passive income, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like with anything, when you start doing lashes, like you're not automatically making a ton of money. You're
Yeah.
like investing your time, you're investing money into continuing education, your products, and your practice, and it's the same, I think, with your training too, is
Mhm.
you can't expect just to be like raking in the dough
Yeah.
right away. Like if you're passionate, it will come and you will have
Mhm.
students lining up. And I think that that's just with everything. It comes with being passionate and being realistic with what your
Yeah.
goals are and
Yeah.
true to yourself, because I mean, we see it all the time where there's people being like, join the lash industry, become a lash artist, you'll make six figures in a year. Like that also
Mm.
makes me want to throw up every
Oh,
time I hear
yeah.
it, because I'm
Mhm.
like, yes, it's very possible, but there are so many things that go into it.
Yeah, it's
So
so heavily involved. You can't just take one lash course and
yeah.
expect to make 6 figures in a year. Yeah.
No, and that could be another red flag, like these really big
Mhm.
promises, like if it seems
Yeah.
too good to be true, it probably
It
is.
probably is,
Yeah.
100%, yeah.
If you're like, dang, she's going to teach me in one day how to do three different techniques and it's going to make me six figures for a $500 course. I'm sorry. No, like it's not,
$500.
it's not like who can, like, it's just not,
Yeah.
I think that's a big one. If it's too good, if it seems too good to be true, it probably freaking is.
Yeah, that's a good
Uh,
red flag. Yeah, just watch out for those.
yeah. And it can be hard. And sometimes, hey, it's a lesson that we have to learn and we have to invest and then be like, okay,
Mhm.
well, good to know.
Yeah.
Didn't learn, what I thought. And maybe next time I will just like save my money a little bit longer, invest into either the longer term training or the more expensive training or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Do you have any obstacles like throughout your training career that you've had to overcome like throughout this?
In the beginning, the biggest obstacle for me was really imposter syndrome. I was having a hard time transitioning from, doing services that were like $70 to
Mm.
doing a service that was essentially like $1,000 to $2,000. I was like, oh my God, people are spending their hard earned income coming to me, and I feel responsible for them to give them the best education that they have. So that was like a lot of pressure on myself. And it is still something I deal with. I know that my courses are like packed with information and that my students leave feeling extremely confident in their ability. But there are so many amazing educators out there that sometimes like I do still like struggle with the am I a good enough educator? Are people going to want to come to me? So that has been an obstacle that I have been working through, but I think the biggest thing that I have taken away from it is every student is going to learn something from every educator. So if I took the same course, but it was taught by 5 different people, I'm going to learn something every single time I take
So
it.
true.
So don't ever undervalue yourself because someone will take something away from your course.
Yeah. No,
Mhm.
that's so true. And I say that too. Like, even if you get a manual or you're taking online trainings, like go back through it. You'll learn
Mhm.
something new every
Yeah.
time. You'll pull a new piece of information that like clicks that time.
Mm.
So, what is coming next for you and your lash brand? Like, what are the next steps in your training? Do you have anything new coming or
Yeah.
in the works?
I this year I've been doing a lot of speaking events, so I'm super excited
Yes.
for that just to be able to share my knowledge on a broader scale. I have been doing a lot of trainings in the UK as well. I'm going over there next year to teach, so I'm super excited about that. But as far as like educational classes go this year, I am launching a fox eye styling course, so
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
super excited about that. I love doing them. I'm hoping to release like a wispy course as well too, and
Mhm.
it'll all be online. I like the online courses and stuff for that. But yeah, I that's pretty much all. I don't know.
And you still have your lash brands, Laura. So
Yes. Mhm.
do you have products and stuff currently going? I think I saw you like just got a big shipment or you were waiting on a shipment.
Yeah, yeah. So for Zalora, I think the biggest thing happening this year is okay. So currently at Zalora, we have point oh 0.03 and point oh 0.05 lashes, and then we have some super awesome lash tiles. We have multiple different tweezers and stuff like I had talked about in the beginning, and then we have some like iPads, some little accessory things like that. But yeah, the biggest thing for Zalora this year is I have opened it up to wholesale. So now
Mm.
salons can purchase at a wholesale and then retail and get profit off of it. So I am super excited about that. It is still in the beginning phases too. So if anybody is interested, message
Yeah.
me.
Hell yeah. No, that's awesome. And I did that with Lash Essential where I like
Mhm.
would I had her products and stuff here. And that was so great for like local people being
Yeah.
able to pick up stuff. And then also for my own personal product too, that you can like,
Mhm.
you know, cut costs there
Yeah, it's
too, which
kinda
is
sad that,
nice.
like, I feel like the whole lash industry is online. Like, if
Yeah.
we run out of glue or, like,
There's
we drop
nowhere
a
to, like,
tweet. There's
go.
nowhere to physically go. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's I'm working my way to having the lash industry be more accessible to
Yeah,
everyone.
I love that. No, that was something with my old co-host Taylor. She was really working. She wanted to work on with like building out kind of like a store, a
Yeah.
supply store where people could like come and pick up product. And I
Mhm.
know there's a couple. I think like Lash Shop Co. that has like some in California, and there's a couple
Mhm.
people do that. But I would love to see that because there are so many times where I'm like, "Fuck, I'm out of freaking
Yes.
Nextcare tape or gel pads or anything," and I'm just like, "It's not going to be here for days." I guess tape is
Yeah.
easy to go get. You can get it from Walgreens, but you
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
certain
But, like,
things, you're like,
glue?
glue. No,
You
you're
don't have glue, you're done. You
Oh,
gotta reschedule.
I've had so many times where lash artists message me and they're like, "Do you still like sell adhesive?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"I'm sorry, I don't." And sometimes I'm like, "But I have a backup bottle or I have
Yeah.
a sample. Come and grab it." Because I'm just like,
That's
this freaking
awesome.
sucks. So before we wrap up, I wanted to just double check because I did an Instagram poll today for you guys to ask questions. So we did have a question which we touched a little bit on how you did it, but maybe we can give some advice too. She asked, "How do I market my trainings? I feel like nobody wants to take them."
I feel like that's a tough question to just, like, answer as, like, a one size fits all. I feel like I
Yeah.
would wanna take a look at how you've been marketing it, maybe what your Instagram looks like, the verbiage that you're
Mm,
using. Yeah, and like I said in the beginning, get a feel, test the waters before you write your curriculum to
yeah.
see. And it could be also too that, like, if your whole following and audience is lash clients,
Mm,
they're obviously not gonna wanna take a lash training from you.
yeah.
So you do have to put in the effort and work to switch your whole audience over to lash artists instead of lash clients. So,
Yes, I totally agree. And sometimes it's hard because you can
yeah.
kind of have both, especially if you're still taking lash clients. I will say what I did when I started transitioning out of like taking clients. I still take clients 2 days a week, but really like my Instagram and like who I want to market to, where I wanted to market more towards lash artists is my lash clients. Like our communication kind of just went to email.
Mhm.
And we just had an email list. So if I had any updates or specials or openings or anything like that, they got an email about it. I didn't do like Instagram post or anything for
Mhm.
them anymore. And then my Instagram really just turned into speaking to my lash artist and educating there instead.
Yeah.
So that way it kind of kept it a little bit separate. And that's how I did it. But yeah, I think that's great advice to really sit back and kind of like audit what your marketing currently is and
Mhm.
get feedback if you've had people take trainings with you, like
Mhm.
getting feedback from those people and being receptive to it, even if it's not all
Yes.
positive, because that's how we learn.
Yeah, that's how you learn and how you grow too. The other thing that I was gonna say is that you might not be coming across as authoritative enough in your knowledge, so
Mm,
people don't wanna take your course because they think it's a gamble. They're
mm,
like, "Am I gonna learn from her?" They need to, like, see the value, they need to see that you, like, know your shit too. So,
yeah,
just the wording, what you post, is it accurate?
yeah.
Like, do you know your shit, you know?
Yeah. No, that's good. I think that was a great answer to that question, especially for it being more broad.
Mhm.
Well, this has been amazing, Sydney. Thank you so much again for coming and hanging out in person. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to go get lunch now after this.
I'm so excited.
And we can continue chatting. You
Yeah.
guys don't get to hear. But let's just like wrap it up. Let everybody know where they can find you so they can give you a follow. I also will attach all of her links in the show notes too. So that way, if you want to check out her lash line or anything like that, then those will be really easy for you guys to grab there. But let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you guys can find me at Pacific Beauty Cove on Instagram. It's
Perfect.
COVE. And then Zalora.lash is the online shop. So you can find me there at Instagram at ZaloraLash.com. But yeah, message me. I love communicating, chatting, networking with you guys. So message me if you have any questions or Kayla too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what upcoming events are you going to be at for speaking? So that way, if anybody's going, you said UK.
Yeah, UK 2024. I'll be there in April, end of April. And then I'll be at LashCon. I won't be
Hell
speaking,
yeah.
but I'm
But
super
you'll be
excited. I'll
there.
be there.
So
Yes, come up say hi.
perfect. Thank you so much, Sydney.
Yeah, thank you.